Asher Cole could never have anticipated that lending a hand to a stranger on the roadside would alter the course of his life indefinitely. Before him stood a 1967 Mustang Fastback, its hood ajar, steam billowing in the warm afternoon air. And beside it, a woman who seemed to belong to another realm entirely, graceful, commanding, and utterly mismatched in his quaint little town. She presented herself as Serafina Lancaster, merely a traveler on the road, just another vehicle in need of repair. But Asher would soon discover she was far from an ordinary woman, and her presence was anything but fleeting. She held the hidden reins of a billion-dollar empire, and in an instant, she had ignited his entire world. A seemingly simple act of kindness would thrust Asher into a tumultuous journey filled with power, ambition, and an unexpected bond that took him by surprise. In a realm dominated by wealth and shrouded in deception, can their deepening connection withstand the trials ahead? Will the adversities they face, her merciless ex, the media, and Asher's haunting history, shatter their bond before it has a chance to flourish? Prior to our commencement, if you enjoy tales of redemption, surprising love, and connections that overcome challenges, this is a must-read for you. Be sure to subscribe and activate notifications to catch every chapter as it unfolds. Believe me, this tale is only beginning to unfold. Now, settle in, find your comfort, and let's explore. A determined single father lent a hand to a woman in need, assisting her with her Mustang repairs. Unbeknownst to many, she possessed a vast empire worth billions. Allow the narrative to unfold. Asher Cole brushed the sweat from his brow, his grease-stained hands marking his forehead with dark smudges. The oppressive summer heat enveloped him as he secured the final bolt on the old pickup truck before him. He stepped back, rolling his shoulders to release the tightness. Another exhausting day at the garage, another meager handful of dollars, just enough to keep him and his 9-year-old son, Elliot, above water. The quaint garage in the heart of the small town had become his refuge ever since life had dealt him a tough hand. Once he envisioned a future filled with innovative car designs, aspiring to craft something truly revolutionary. Yet, following the sudden loss of his wife and a string of financial setbacks, he ended up in this place, repairing others' cars, barely making ends meet, and striving to be the father that Elliot truly deserved. A well-known voice jolted him back to reality. "Hey Asher, you should take a look at this. Jackson Tate, your longtime friend and co-worker, just called from the garage entrance. It seems there's a situation unfolding on the highway, perhaps a chance for a roadside rescue." Asher let out a groan, yet he cleaned his hands with a rag and picked up his toolbox regardless. Roadside repairs were a common occurrence, yet they frequently involved navigating the frustrations of impatient, entitled drivers who regarded mechanics as lesser beings. Nevertheless, work was work. He climbed into his weathered truck and drove down the gravel path that wound away from the town. A short distance ahead, he noticed a 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback parked by the roadside, its rich midnight blue hue shimmering in the sunlight. It was the sort of vehicle that caught the eye, a timeless piece, lovingly cared for, yet unmistakably showing signs of wear. Asher eased his vehicle to a stop, positioning it behind the other car, and then exited with purpose. The hood was raised, revealing a woman bent over the engine, captivating in a way he had never encountered before. Her attire seemed out of place for someone wandering in this desolate expanse. Her silk blouse, tailored slacks, and expensive-looking sunglasses exuded wealth, yet she was far from a naive socialite idly waiting by her car. With her hands firmly placed on her hips and her brows knitted in concentration, she examined the engine, determined to uncover the issue on her own. She pivoted at the echo of his nearing footsteps. "Do you require assistance?" he inquired, maintaining a steady tone. She removed her sunglasses, unveiling captivating gray eyes. They were cool and calculating, yet oddly familiar. "I'm assuming you're a mechanic?" she inquired, raising an eyebrow. "Something along those lines," he responded, placing his toolbox on the ground. "What appears to be the issue?" She let out a soft sigh, gently pushing a stray lock of chestnut hair away from her face. It began to sputter a few miles ago, and then it just stopped altogether. I barely made it to the shoulder. Asher leaned in to examine the engine bay. The Mustang gleamed, a testament to its care, suggesting that neglect wasn't the issue at hand. He inspected the battery terminals, looked for any visible signs of damage, and then identified the problem, a loose fuel line. Simple solution, he remarked, grabbing a wrench. You're fortunate it didn't abandon you deeper in the wilderness. That's open to interpretation, she murmured quietly, folding her arms. Asher focused intently for a moment, securing the connection and inspecting the fuel pump. She possessed an air of mystery, a certain protectiveness, and an underlying sense of unease. She was more than merely a wealthy woman with a luxury vehicle. Her gaze held a profound depth, as if she bore a narrative far too burdensome to articulate. "You from around here?" he asked, trying to break the silence. She paused, weighing her response. "Not exactly. Just passing through." "That's a shame," he remarked, looking up at her. "Not many folks around here drive a beauty like this. It would have been delightful to witness it on the road more frequently." A subtle smile began to form on her lips. "You're a fan?" "Of Mustangs, absolutely, but a '67 Fastback. That's not merely a car. It's a slice of history." A spark of something crossed her face. Not laughter, but intrigue. "And what about you?" she inquired. "What's your tale?" Asher secured the final bolt and stood up straight, brushing his hands against his jeans. "Just a guy who repairs vehicles and takes care of his child. Nothing thrilling about cruising in a vintage Mustang through the heart of nowhere." She observed him for a moment, as if weighing his statements. She reached out her hand. "Serafina," she introduced herself. "Just call me Sarah." "Asher," he said, offering his hand for a shake. Her hold was strong, assured, not the grip of someone accustomed to being overlooked. He turned back to the car, brushing the sweat from his forehead. "Go ahead and give it a shot now." Sarah settled into the driver's seat, twisted the key, and the Mustang sprang back to life with a powerful roar. She let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. "Well," she remarked as she stepped outside, "I suppose I owe you a favor." "Just fulfilling my duty," Asher responded. She delved into her stylish handbag, retrieving a chic leather wallet. "How much do I owe you?" Asher looked at the car, then back at her. There was a glimmer in her eyes, anticipating the routine, waiting for him to accept the payment and walk away. He shook his head. "Don't worry about it," Sarah said with a frown. "But you—" "It took me 10 minutes, he replied nonchalantly. "Not worth charging for that." She looked at him as if he had just committed an utterly baffling act. Individuals like her weren't accustomed to receiving anything without a cost. After a lengthy silence, she tucked her wallet away and donned her sunglasses once more. "Well then, I appreciate. It's Asher." She hopped into the Mustang, revving the engine briefly before merging back onto the road. Asher observed the car vanish beyond the horizon, a peculiar sensation taking root in his chest. There was something about Serafina Lancaster that hinted this wouldn't be the final encounter between them, and he remained blissfully unaware of just how accurate that intuition was. The garage was unusually silent that evening. The aroma of motor oil and gasoline hung in the air as Asher Cole meticulously cleaned his tools, his thoughts drifting back to the woman he had encountered earlier that day, Serafina Lancaster. The name echoed in his mind. His thoughts lingered like an unforgettable melody. It wasn't merely her captivating appearance or the grace with which she moved. It was the way she had gazed at him, as if attempting to unravel his essence, as if she were unaccustomed to others turning down her generosity. Jackson Tate, his longtime friend and co-worker, strolled in, casually tossing a grimy rag onto the workbench. "You've been unusually quiet since you returned," he noted. "Let me guess, another affluent city dweller who can't manage their vehicle?" Asher chuckled, shaking his head. "Not quite. She was well versed in handling that Mustang. At the very least, To attempt to identify the problem before my arrival, Jackson whistled softly. A woman who drives a '67 fastback and genuinely cares about it? That's a rarity. He leaned against the bench. What's her story? I have no idea. Just passing through, she replied. Jackson arched an eyebrow. And you believe that? Asher breathed out, shaking his head. Not really. Just as Jackson was about to delve deeper, the office phone rang, its sharp tone reverberating through the garage. Asher brushed his hands against his jeans, pausing for a moment before responding. Cole's Auto, Asher speaking, came a polished, confident voice. Mr. Hello Cole, it's Mark Ellington here. I'm reaching out for Sterling Automotive Group, Asher said with a frown. Sterling Automotive. The name struck a familiar chord. One of the largest automotive companies in the nation. Indeed, the man went on. We're broadening our service operations and seeking talented mechanics to lead several of our specialty shops. Your name came up as a recommendation, and we would like to offer you an interview for a management position in our new restoration division. Asher blinked, gripping the phone tighter. I believe you may be mistaken. Ellington laughed lightly. I can guarantee you we are not. Your contributions are highly valued, and we are eager to tap into your knowledge. If you're willing to consider it, we would love for you to come to our facility in the city for a tour and a formal discussion. Asher paused. The position seemed almost unreal. Significant restoration work, consistent income, a genuine future for Elliot. But why at this moment? Why was he chosen? Yet, it wasn't as if prospects were presenting themselves to him daily. When's the meeting? He inquired. Tomorrow morning, if you're free. We'll organize transportation, if needed. Asher looked at Jackson, who was now observing him with interest. I can make it on my own, he declared at last. Excellent. I'll email you the details. After hanging up, Asher fixed his gaze on the phone, the weight of the moment settling in. Jackson smirked. So, are you going to enlighten me about that? Or should I take a shot at figuring it out myself? Asher let out a breath. A company named Sterling Automotive has reached out for me to interview for a management position. Jackson's smirk grew even broader. Wow, are you sure you didn't just hit the jackpot? It just doesn't make sense, Asher murmured. Why would a billion-dollar company suddenly take an interest in a small-town mechanic? Jackson shrugged. Maybe someone significant. I came across your work. Perhaps it was merely chance. Yet, Asher was not the type to place his faith in chance. Clad in his finest attire, which amounted to little more than a crisp button-down and his most presentable jeans, Asher came to a halt outside the exclusive grounds of Sterling Automotive. The disparity between his garage and this polished, cutting-edge corporate hub was nearly comical. Upon entering, the gleaming floors, transparent offices, and the steady buzz of productivity unmistakably conveyed a singular message. He found himself miles away from the familiar comforts of home. The receptionist guided him to a conference room, where Mark Ellington, the voice from the phone, welcomed him with a friendly handshake. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Cole. Have a seat. Asher took his place in the chair, casting a cautious glance at the man. I appreciate the offer, but I still don't understand why I'm here, Ellington replied, a smile playing on his lips as he intertwined his fingers. We're in search of an individual with practical experience, someone who possesses a deep understanding of classic restorations at a top-tier level. You've established quite the reputation. True, but I never put myself forward for anything, Asher interrupted. So who put my name out there? Before Ellington could respond, the door creaked open. Asher pivoted, and a gasp lodged in his throat. Serafina Lancaster entered the room with a quiet grace. She had shed her roadside attire. She donned a fitted navy suit, her hair arranged in a polished and sophisticated manner. She appeared as though she was meant for this world, as if she had complete command over it. Because she did. Asher, she said with a calm demeanor, as if their previous encounter had been under entirely different circumstances. He rose slowly. You arranged this? Her expression was a mystery. You possess a gift. I believed it was time for someone to acknowledge it. A sour sensation lingered in his mouth. Is this what you call charity? Serafina raised her eyebrows. No, this is an opportunity, one you've earned. Asher clenched his jaw, a storm brewing within him. The thought of being reduced to someone's charity, a mere project, filled him with disdain. I don't take handouts, he replied, his voice devoid of warmth. Ellington shifted with unease, yet Serafina remained steadfast. Then don't view it like that, she said. Consider it an opportunity to pursue your passion, at a level where you can truly make an impact. Asher felt the urge to walk away and express his disdain for their corporate proposals, but then he thought of Elliot. His son deserved more than a father too proud to seize a genuine chance at something greater. Following an extended pause, he let out a breath. Tell me more about the job. Serafina's lips curled slightly. I thought you'd never ask, and just like that, Asher Cole's life was about to change forever. Asher sat stiffly in the luxurious office of Sterling Automotive. With his arms crossed, he absorbed the details of the offer that Mark Ellington presented. The atmosphere exuded opulence, with sleek mahogany desks, expansive windows framing the city skyline, and a quiet buzz of productivity in the air. It was a realm distant from his humble garage. And then there was Serafina Lancaster, the woman who, merely a day prior, had been stranded on the roadside with a malfunctioning Mustang. Now she sat elegantly on the other side of the desk, calm and collected, as if she hadn't just flipped his world on its head. You'd be at the helm of our new classic restoration division? Ellington elaborated. We require an individual with practical experience, someone who grasps the artistry of restoration, not merely the mechanics, but the essence of these vehicles. Asher took a deep breath. And this opportunity just happened to arise right after I assisted you on the highway? His eyes darted towards Serafina, a heavy layer of doubt lacing his words. Her expression was a complete enigma. The position was here long before you arrived, Asher. I just sped things up, he scoffed. And why would you do that? I witnessed your craft. I felt your enthusiasm, and I have faith in giving opportunities to those who truly merit them. Her voice flowed effortlessly, each word chosen with precision. Yet Asher wasn't foolish. This feels so much like charity, Serafina sighed, leaning her elbows on the desk. You keep saying that. Why does it bother you so much that someone might actually think you're talented enough to deserve this? Because nothing in my life has ever come that easy. His voice cut through the air, sharper than he intended, revealing the frustration that lay beneath the surface. Individuals do not simply toss opportunities my way. When they do, it's often because they seek something, a glimmer of something. Comprehension. A shadow of pain crossed her face, but it vanished in a heartbeat. This isn't a gift, Asher. It's a business proposition. Ellington cleared his throat, interjecting before the atmosphere could become more charged. Let's discuss the figures. He pushed a folder across the desk. The compensation is in the six-figure range, includes comprehensive benefits, and offers a relocation package if necessary. You will gain access to cutting-edge equipment, lead a committed team, and have the opportunity to work on some of the most unique classic cars in the nation. Asher refrained from making contact with the folder. The figures failed to captivate him. He was not the type to pursue wealth. His focus was on mastery of his existence, mastery of the events that unfolded for his son. What level of autonomy can I expect? He inquired. Or am I merely a pawn in the corporate game, required to vet every choice through a boardroom? Ellington paused, casting a look at Serafina. She inclined her body ever so slightly. You would have the freedom to shape your projects, she mentioned, but you'd be a member of Sterling Automotive. That carries certain expectations. And when I declined, she didn't even flinch. Then you returned to your garage, mending cars one by one, just getting by, struggling and wishing for a miraculous change. His jaw clenched. She understood precisely where to strike. Elliot raced through her thoughts. Her son warranted stability, opportunity, a father capable of providing more than mere survival. At last, Asher let out a breath. "I need time to think," Serafina replied, her nod suggesting she had anticipated this response. "Embrace the night, but don't linger too long." Her words hung in the air as he rose and departed. In his humble two-bedroom rental, Asher lingered at the kitchen counter, gazing at the contract as if it were a distant star. The figures swam before his eyes, overshadowed by the gravity of the choice ahead. He stole a look at Elliot, who was engrossed in his work at the table. As his son tackled his homework, it struck Asher how quickly he was maturing, almost too quickly, and he felt the pressure mounting to provide the life his son truly deserved. "You okay, Dad?" Elliot's voice held a quiet yet perceptive quality. Asher managed to put on a smile. "Yeah, kid, just a big decision." Elliot tilted his head. "Is it about the fancy car, lady?" Asher let out a soft laugh. "Yeah, something like that." She appeared pleasant, Elliot reflected, tapping his pencil against his notebook. "And you always tell me that good things happen when we take chances." Asher paused. From the innocent perspective of youth, he realized he had spent too much of his life in caution, hesitant to believe that anything good could endure. Perhaps it was time to embrace a different approach. The following morning, Asher stepped back into Sterling Automotive, the contract securely tucked away in his jacket pocket. He discovered Serafina in her office, immersed in a pile of paperwork. She hardly glanced up as he walked in. "So?" Asher retrieved the signed contract from his pocket and set it down on her desk. "I'm in." For the first time since their encounter, her facade faltered. A subtle, contented smile graced her lips. "Good." Ellington stepped forward, shaking Asher's hand firmly. "Welcome to Sterling Automotive." Asher nodded, his eyes unwaveringly fixed on Serafina. "Just so we're clear," he stated, his voice calm and assured. "I'm doing this for my son, not because I need saving." Serafina's gray eyes softened, just a fraction. "Noted." Yet, the tone in her voice left Asher pondering whether she had, in fact, saved him all the same. Asher Cole had never experienced the finer things in life. Strolling through Sterling Automotive's advanced restoration facility was akin to entering a different realm, with its shining glass walls, state-of-the-art diagnostic equipment, and an array of classic cars maintained in immaculate condition. This was more than a garage. It stood as a testament to the rich tapestry of automotive history. It ought to have been thrilling, energizing even. Yet, a familiar discomfort took root in his stomach. He was out of place here. A fragment of his being had anticipated this sensation. A small-town mechanic's son, positioned at the heart of a vast billion-dollar empire, feigning a sense of belonging. Yet, it extended beyond the polished surroundings. The essence lay in the individuals. As he stepped onto the main floor, silence enveloped the space. The mechanics, the supervisors, the corporate suits, all cast their gazes upon him. A mix of curiosity, skepticism, and outright hostility reflected in their expressions. "Ah, the new boss!" a voice lazily called out from the far end of the room. Asher turned to see Garrett Vaughn, the lead technician, approaching with a casual stride. The man was broad-shouldered, likely in his mid-40s, exuding an aura of someone who had witnessed countless comings and goings. "You must be Asher Cole," Vaughn remarked, cleaning grease from his hands. "The chosen one, selected by Miss Lancaster herself." Asher caught the sharpness in his tone. He held Vaughn's gaze steadily. "Not much of a chosen one," he responded. "Just a guy who knows cars." Vaughn chuckled lightly. "We'll see about that." He waved his hand, indicating the surroundings. "This shop operates with precision. We have the finest restoration team in the nation. Professionals who have honed their craft over decades. No offense intended, but a small-town mechanic stepping in and trying to take control," he shrugged. "It's going to require more than just Miss Lancaster's approval to achieve victory. Us over." Asher's jaw clenched, yet he refrained from snapping back. He had experienced enough altercations in his life to recognize when someone was attempting to provoke him. I wouldn't expect you to just roll out a red carpet, Asher said with a calm demeanor. I'll prove myself the same way I always have, by getting my hands dirty and doing the work. Vaughn tilted his head, contemplating him for a prolonged moment. With a sly grin, he moved to the side. Well then, boss, let's see what you've got. The challenge was unmistakable. Asher had just stepped into a war zone. By mid-afternoon, Asher discovered himself beneath the hood of a 1969 Dodge Charger, one of the most treasured restorations in the shop. The vehicle had remained idle for weeks, with Vaughn asserting that the engine troubles were too intricate for just anyone to address. It was a challenge. One misstep, and he'd validate Vaughn's belief that he was out of place here. Asher rolled up his sleeves, dismissing the curious glances of the other mechanics. He zeroed in on the car, attuned to the faint irregularities in the engine's cadence. In just a few moments, he pinpointed the issue with precision. There's a fuel-air imbalance, Asher shouted back, glancing over his shoulder. The carburetor is misaligned. Vaughn, standing nearby, let out a scoff. That's what you think? Asher remained silent. He seized a wrench, fine-tuned the carburetor, and with unwavering confidence, turned the key. The Charger sprang to life, its engine purring with flawless precision. Quiet enveloped the garage. A handful of the mechanics shared knowing looks. A few acknowledged with subtle nods of agreement. Even Vaughn, in spite of his previous arrogance, appeared somewhat taken aback. Asher rested against the car, cleaning his hands with a thoughtful expression. I suppose I do more than merely repair small-town vehicles. For the first time, Vaughn found himself at a loss for words. Later that evening, Asher sat in his office, a sleek, modern space that felt far too extravagant for him, when a gentle knock echoed at the door. Are you occupied? He glanced upward to find Serafina Lancaster before him, a sly smile playing on her lips. Never too busy for my boss, Asher remarked with a hint of sarcasm. She entered, arms folded. News spreads quickly. It seems you've successfully navigated Vaughn's little challenge. He reclined in his chair. I knew you would, she confessed. I did, she acknowledged. But that doesn't mean they did. Respect is not freely offered in this place. It's earned. He regarded her intently for a moment. In this space, she truly shone, revealing a side of herself that felt authentic and alive. Incisive, self-assured, entirely comfortable within her vast realm of wealth. You know, he pondered. It still eludes my understanding. She arched an eyebrow. What doesn't? This? He indicated with a sweep of his hand, encompassing the space around them. Are you considering hiring me? Based on personal interest. I understand you noticed my work, but let's be honest, Serafina. You don't assist others without a motive. So, what's the truth behind it? A fleeting change crossed her face, a momentary pause, a fracture in the flawless exterior. She straightened, her defenses re-establishing themselves. Maybe I just enjoy witnessing talented individuals thrive. Asher maintained his gaze on her. He was utterly unconvinced by that notion. He sensed a hidden truth within her, yet he chose not to pry. Not at this moment. Instead, he wore a sly grin. Well, boss, if you wanted to impress me, you could have just let me drive your Mustang again. A genuine smile lit up her face, the first one he'd witnessed from her that seemed entirely free of pretense. Perhaps someday, she remarked. As she turned to depart, Asher observed her retreat, the discomfort in his chest transforming into something altogether different. This position represented more than a mere career transition. It marked the beginning of something far more significant. And no matter what lay ahead, he was determined not to retreat. Asher anticipated hurdles when he accepted the position at Sterling Automotive, yet he was unprepared for their arrival so quickly. Just a week into his new role, it became evident that although he had garnered some respect from the mechanics, not all were eager to see him thrive. The atmosphere in the shop was nuanced but unmistakable. When he entered the room, conversations would fade into silence, and there was a subtle tension in the way some of the senior techs responded to his directives. It wasn't blatant insubordination, but a slight pause that indicated they were still gauging his authority. Asher remained unfazed by it all. What troubled him was how his new life was beginning to impact his old one. "You're late," Jackson muttered as Asher entered their old garage late one evening. Asher let out a sigh, raking a hand through his hair. "Indeed, it's been a long day." Jackson folded his arms, resting against the workbench. "It feels as though each day stretches endlessly. I remember you saying you wouldn't allow a flashy corporate position to dominate your existence." Asher let out a sigh. He ought to have anticipated this. Jackson was more than just his closest companion. He was the one individual who stood by him when everything crumbled. They had constructed this garage side by side, and now Asher was hardly present. "It's just temporary," he claimed, though uncertainty lingered. Was he trying to reassure Jackson or himself? "I just need to navigate this transition. Once I find my footing, everything will balance out." Jackson observed him intently for a while before finally shaking his head. "Just make sure you don't lose yourself in that environment, my friend. Wealth is wonderful, yet it holds no value if you lose sight of your true self." Asher remained silent, but Jackson's words lingered in his mind for a long time. The following day at Sterling Automotive, while Asher was wrapping up paperwork in his office, a knock interrupted him. Anticipating the arrival of a mechanic, he looked up and was momentarily paralyzed. In the doorway stood Victor Langley, exuding an air of affluence and superiority. Asher recognized him from various articles and business publications. A former spouse of Serafina Lancaster, a corporate titan known for his mastery of power dynamics and his carefully curated public persona. Victor entered without an invitation, fiddling with his cufflinks while surveying the office with a hint of contempt. "So, you're the one everyone's talking about." Asher reclined in his chair, maintaining a calm demeanor. "And you are," Victor smirked. "Oh, come on, you know exactly who I am." Asher crossed his arms. "If you're visiting the facility, please make sure to check in at reception." Victor chuckled softly. "I'm not here for Sterling Automotive. I'm here for you." Asher's muscles tightened, yet he maintained a steady tone. "Is that so?" Victor moved in closer, lowering his voice just enough to convey his intent. "This wasn't just a casual visit. Let's bypass the formalities. You are quite the intriguing selection for Serafina's latest endeavor." Project Asher's jaw clenched, yet he willed himself to maintain his composure. "Listen," Victor pressed on. "I understand. Person like you, driven and resilient with a bit of grit. It's an intriguing narrative. It certainly serves as a clever strategy for her image." Asher's fists tightened beneath the desk. "If you have something to say, then say it." Victor's smirk grew even broader. "What I'm saying is, you have no place here, and you definitely shouldn't be close by. Serafina, there it is. The true motive behind this unexpected visit." Asher breathed out deliberately, maintaining a calm tone. "Is something bothering you, Langley?" Victor's grin wavered for a brief moment before it reappeared. "Not in the slightest. I thought I might share a bit of wisdom. Stick to what you know." Asher laughed softly, shaking his head. "You traveled all this distance just to say that? You must be more concerned than you're admitting." Victor's gaze grew intense. "She belonged to the Lancasters. You were just an insignificant presence." The silence hung between them, dense and oppressive. Asher rose, moving around the desk until they were almost at eye level. "You know," he said, "I've encountered individuals like you in the past. Those who believe that wealth grants them immunity. However, allow me to share this with you, Langley. I am not easily intimidated." Victor's jaw clenched, yet he managed to laugh, adjusting his suit jacket with a deliberate motion. "Do as you wish, but don't claim I didn't give you a heads up." With that, he pivoted and exited, creating an atmosphere thick with unease. Asher sighed, massaging his temples. If this was merely the start, he sensed that things were poised to become significantly more complicated. Later that evening, Asher stood on the rooftop of the Sterling building, gazing at the city skyline. He craved fresh air, room to breathe, something to untangle his thoughts. Rooftop brooding caught him off guard. He hadn't pegged you as the dramatic sort. He turned to see Serafina standing there, arms crossed, her typically composed demeanor tinged with a hint of concern. Your ex came by today, Asher stated, getting right to the heart of the matter. Serafina let out a weary sigh. Let me guess. He advised you to keep your distance from me? Asher replied with a smirk. More or less. She shook her head, moving to the edge of the rooftop and gazing out over the city. Victor has an aversion to defeat. It's not personal. It's a matter of dominance. Asher observed her intently for a brief moment. And what about you? Do you enjoy defeat? Serafina turned to him then, an enigmatic expression in her gray eyes. I didn't bring you here to fail, Asher. The intensity in her voice ignited a slow fire within his chest. For the first time, he transcended the role of a mere mechanic. He was no longer just a single father striving to make ends meet. He found himself woven into something greater, and whether he embraced it or not, there was no turning back from this battle. Asher Cole had faced his share of challenges, losing his wife, raising a son on his own, and struggling in a town where opportunities were few and far between. Yet, Victor Langley's visit had stirred something unsettling within him. It wasn't merely the threat that lingered. It was the presumption that gnawed at him. Victor had addressed him as if he were merely an annoyance, a fleeting obstacle to be eliminated, and Asher had dedicated his entire life to disproving individuals like that. The following morning, Asher reached Sterling Automotive ahead of schedule. If he was going to face challenges at every corner, he certainly wouldn't back down. He aimed to simplify things for them. However, as he stepped into the restoration bay, an unsettling feeling washed over him. The familiar buzz of morning hustle had given way to hushed whispers and anxious looks. Then he noticed it. The '69 Dodge Charger, the very one he had fixed just a few days prior, lay in ruins. The front end was utterly crumpled. The hood buckled inward, and the windshield bore a long spiderweb crack that marred its surface. A knot formed in his stomach. This was no mere accident. This was a calculated act of sabotage. Vaughn, the lead technician, stood there with his arms crossed. What a way to kick off the day. Asher took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. What on earth happened? Vaughn mentioned that security footage revealed a break-in last night. Used a wrench in the engine bay. Damaged the body. Likely believed they were expressing something significant. A declaration. Only one individual possessed the audacity to convey a message of this nature. Victor. Asher tightened his jaw. You call the cops? Vaughn sneered. Sure, but what do you think they'll do? This isn't exactly at the top of their list. Asher let out a quick breath, then faced the team. We're going to fix this. A couple of the younger mechanics paused, looking to Vaughn for direction. The older man observed Asher intently for a moment before nodding. Very well, but you'll be in charge of the repair. Let's see how you handle the pressure, Chief. Asher sprang into action without a moment's pause. He seized a wrench and immersed himself in the task at hand. The morning seamlessly transitioned into the afternoon, marked by a steady cadence of metal clashing, sweat beading, and unwavering resolve. The vehicle lay in ruins, yet it was not entirely lost. By noon, Serafina Lancaster arrived, her face a mask of inscrutability as she examined the wreckage. You didn't mention this, she said. Asher kept his gaze down. I didn't think it was necessary. Serafina crossed her arms. I take it you have a suspect? He placed his wrench down, cleaning his hands with a rag. We both understand who's to blame. She's indoors, her fingers weaving through her hair. Victor has never been one to play by the rules. Yeah, well, neither do I, Asher said, his voice steady yet resolute. Serafina observed him, a flicker of something in her gray eyes. Admiration, perhaps even a hint of admiration. You truly don't fear him, do you? Asher locked eyes with her. Should I? A subtle smile played at the corner of her lips. Many individuals are. So, I suppose I'm not like the majority. At that moment, Serafina released a gentle sigh for the first time that day. Initially amused, her expression shifted to one of seriousness. This is going to escalate, Asher. Victor is relentless in his pursuit of validation. Let him make his attempt, Asher remarked. I'm here to stay. In that instant, a change occurred between them. An unspoken connection. Serafina Lancaster was not a woman in need of saving. For the first time in ages, she found herself no longer battling solitude. That evening, Asher arrived to collect Elliot from school. His son hopped into the truck, carelessly flinging his backpack into the back seat. Elliot noted the weariness in Asher's eyes. Asher responded with a sly grin. It's been a long day, kid. Elliot observed him for a moment, then gave a nod. Did the elegant car lady come by again? Asher laughed softly. Indeed, she did. You like her, Elliot stated plainly. Asher arched an eyebrow. Is it that obvious? Elliot flashed a grin. Sort of. You mention her frequently. Asher shook his head, a smile playing on his lips. She's my boss, kid, Elliot shrugged. Yet I believe she has a fondness for you as well. Asher remained silent, but the idea hung in the air. Was there a connection between him and Serafina? Or was it merely the spark ignited by two souls clashing on the same battlefield? Uncertainty lingered, yet an instinct whispered that answers were imminent. The following day, Asher stepped into the Sterling Automotive headquarters, anticipating another challenging but bearable shift. What awaited him, however, was a whirlwind of disorder. Journalists gathered along the pavement outside the structure. The bright bursts of camera flashes illuminated the scene as security struggled to manage the throng. Asher felt a wave of unease wash over him. What on earth is happening? He murmured as he entered. In the midst of the chaos stood Serafina, her jaw clenched, her face a mask of inscrutability, encircled by agitated executives. Then he noticed it. The headline on the news screen, Mysterious New Hire at Sterling Automotive, is Serafina Lancaster's latest project more than just business. Accompanied by a photo of him and Serafina on the rooftop last night, Asher exhaled slowly. Victor had made his move. Serafina turned to meet his gaze, and for the first time since their paths had crossed, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. The war had officially commenced. The tumult of the newsroom outside Sterling Automotive's headquarters paled in comparison to the charged atmosphere within. Asher had encountered numerous challenges throughout his life: financial hardships, the trials of single parenthood, and constant underestimation at every corner. Yet this was an entirely different arena, with Serafina Lancaster at its heart, unwavering amidst the chaos surrounding her. Her gray eyes locked onto his, enigmatic yet piercing. I assume you've caught the news? Asher breathed out, his hands planted firmly on his hips. It's tough to overlook with that media frenzy outside. One of the executives, a balding man in a three-piece suit, rubbed his temples. This is precisely the type of scandal we cannot afford at this moment. Investors are already beginning to inquire. Serafina's demeanor remained steadfast. This isn't a scandal. It's a concocted tale designed to tarnish the reputations of both Asher and myself. Another executive scoffed. Nevertheless, perception is crucial, Miss Lancaster. At this moment, the prevailing view is that you've granted an unqualified mechanic an opportunity for reasons unrelated to business. Asher's jaw tightened. An unqualified mechanic. He could endure skepticism from others, but he absolutely refused to allow some corporate figure to undermine all that he had fought for. He advanced with determination. I couldn't care less about the media's opinions. The quality of the work is what truly matters. I've been toiling away in that garage, demonstrating my worth, the executive remarked with a smirk. Yet, a single leaked article can threaten your position. Serafina's voice sliced through the air with precision. His position is secure. Quiet enveloped the room. The executives fidgeted, casting furtive looks at one another. It was evident that Serafina's command was firm, yet teetering on the edge. At last, the balding executive let out a deep sigh. Very well, but we must devise a plan. It's time for damage control. Serafina folded her arms, a determined look on her face. I'll take care of it. Later that evening, Asher found himself in the confines of Serafina's private office. He rested against the window, observing the city lights dance beneath him. You understand the origin of this. Serafina placed her tablet aside, massaging her temples. Victor. Damn. That's right, Victor? Asher turned to look at her. He wanted me to step away, and when that failed, he resorted to his usual tactics. Manipulate the story, she sighed. It's not solely about you, Asher. He's attempting to undermine my stance, portraying me as impulsive, unable to distinguish between personal and professional matters. Asher crossed his arms. And can you? Her eyes shot up to meet his. For the first time since this chaos began, he noticed a shift in her expression that transcended cold calculation. It was vulnerability. Asher. She paused. I didn't bring you here to be a burden. I didn't pull strings out of pity for you. He observed her intently. So what was your reason? A moment of silence followed. Then, in a whisper so gentle, it nearly went unnoticed. For I found a reflection of myself within you. Asher's breath caught in his throat. Serafina turned away, wrapping her arms tightly around herself. I understand the feeling of being told you don't fit in. The struggle to claim what is rightfully yours, even when you've proven your worth time and again. He was taken aback. He had anticipated a well-prepared excuse, a smooth reply. Not this, not truthfulness. Gradually, he approached her. What's the next move? She let out a breath, pressing her palms against the desk. We push back. If Victor wants to play rough, then we make it clear that we're here to stay. Asher smirked. Now that's a strategy one can support. The following morning, Sterling Automotive issued a statement, dispelling the rumors. Serafina publicly declared that Asher's hiring was purely merit-based, emphasizing that he had already demonstrated his value. It provided some reassurance, albeit slightly, yet the harm had already been inflicted. The murmurs within the organization persisted. The spotlight from the media remained unyielding. Victor had sown the seeds of uncertainty, and they were beginning to flourish. Just as the atmosphere began to calm, Asher's phone vibrated with a message from an unfamiliar number. He paused for a moment, contemplating, before picking up the call. Oh really? A slick, self-satisfied tone resonated through the receiver. What's it like being in the spotlight, Cole? Asher's hold grew firmer. You've got some audacity reaching out to me, Langley. Victor let out a light laugh. Take it easy. I simply wanted to offer my congratulations. You're capturing attention, my friend. Quite the ascent for an unknown mechanic. Asher clenched his jaw. Are you truly feeling threatened by me? Victor's tone became cold. I'm not feeling threatened. I'm simply irritated. And believe me, you really don't want to get on my nerves, Cole. There was a brief pause. Then Victor went on, his voice laced with amusement. But since you're so keen to demonstrate your abilities, let's add a twist to the situation. How about a challenge? Asher felt a knot in his stomach. What sort of challenge? Victor mused. A crucial contract is at stake. A deal with Lancaster Racing. Should Serafina succeed, Sterling Automotive will venture into high-performance restorations. If she fails, let's just say her company won't have much left to manage. Asher frowned. And what does that concern me? Victor's grin was nearly palpable. Because I hold the power over who secures that contract. And if you truly value your position and want to ensure Serafina remains in the lead, you'll step back. A pause. Then Victor struck with his ultimate remark. Think wisely, Cole. Step back. Otherwise, she risks it all. Click. The line went silent. Asher remained rooted in place, his heart racing, thoughts swirling in a chaotic dance. This had transcended his own concerns. It was now centered on her. And for the first time in what felt like ages, Asher confronted a chilling realization. He wasn't merely battling for employment. He was battling for Serafina. Asher Cole had dedicated his entire existence to confronting struggles that appeared insurmountable. Yet, this situation carried a different weight. Victor Langley had been unequivocal. Either turn back or witness Serafina's world crumble. It wasn't merely a strategic decision. It was deeply personal. And that was the aspect that coiled in Asher's stomach like a knife. Victor's intentions went beyond merely dismantling Serafina's company. He aimed to obliterate her entirely. That night, Asher chose not to delay until dawn. He drove directly to Serafina's penthouse. His grip on the steering wheel so tight that his knuckles turned white. When she opened the door, dressed in silk lounge pants and a fitted sweater, her gray eyes narrowed at the sight of him. Asher felt a sense of validation in his decision. "You look like you're about to punch someone," she remarked, stepping aside to let him enter. "Not off the table," he muttered, brushing past her. Serafina let out a weary sigh as she closed the door behind her. "I take it this is about Victor," she thought, while Asher turned to meet her gaze. "He called me, making it abundantly clear that if I don't step back, you'll lose the Lancaster racing contract." Serafina's face remained stoic, yet he had come to understand her well enough to notice the tightness in her shoulders. "He's bluffing," she asserted, though the uncertainty in her tone revealed her doubt. "You don't really believe that," Asher retorted. "And you really shouldn't. He's not going to relent, Sarah. This goes beyond a mere contract. It's a matter of dominance. He seeks to assert his control over this realm, making it clear that you are merely an outsider here." Her jaw clenched in response. "I am not a guest in anything," Asher exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Then let me help you." She studied him carefully, as if weighing the extent to which she could allow him to enter her world. "This is my battle, Asher." "Oh really? I don't care," he replied, his tone resolute. "Do you really believe I'm going to stand by and let him tear everything away from you? I don't turn my back. Not from this. Not from you." Her breath hitched ever so slightly. She gazed at him, truly gazed at him, and for a fleeting instant, the frost in her eyes thawed. "Asher," she began, but he moved nearer, his tone softer now. "Tell me you don't want me here," he murmured. "Say you don't need me and I'll leave." Silence hung in the air. Serafina Lancaster, the woman who had constructed barriers so formidable that no one could breach them, stood there, gazing at him as if he were the first person in ages to genuinely understand her. At last, her voice broke the silence. "I don't want you to walk," Asher breathed out, feeling a constriction in his chest that was far removed from any professional concern and deeply tied to her presence. "Good," he whispered. "Then we confront this challenge as a team." By morning, Asher and Serafina found themselves in a secluded boardroom, strategizing on how to counter Victor's move. "We must secure the Lancaster racing contract before he has a chance to meddle," she stated, displaying data on a tablet. "The only way to achieve that is to demonstrate that we are the superior choice, which requires something significant, something irrefutable." Asher leaned in closer. "Then let's present them with an offer they can't turn down." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm all ears." "We present a prototype," Asher mentioned, "not merely a restoration but something revolutionary. We restore a classic car, infusing it with contemporary performance enhancements, creating an ideal fusion of past and present." Her eyes lit up with curiosity. "A restomod? Do you believe that will suffice?" Asher grinned. "If we do it right?" Serafina pondered, then nodded. "Then we have 48 hours to make it happen," he said, blinking. 48? "We can't afford to wait," she remarked. "Victor is already taking action. If we hesitate, we lose," Asher breathed out. "No pressure or anything." "Fine," he replied. "Let's create an incredible car." The following 2 days became a whirlwind of grease, sweat, and relentless energy. Asher and his team toiled through the night, dismantling a 1967 Mustang fastback, reconstructing it from the ground up. Serafina was present at every turn, not merely observing, but actively engaged. Despite her status as a billionaire CEO, she possessed a deep understanding of her cars. "Pass me the torque wrench," she instructed from beneath the hood at one moment. Asher smirked, tossing it to her. "Didn't take you for the hands-on type, Lancaster." She shot him a look. "There's much you haven't yet discovered about me." "Cole," he laughed, eager to uncover the details. When they finally brought the newly restored Mustang into the Sterling Automotive showroom, it was nothing short of a masterpiece. Sleek, powerful, and a flawless fusion of classic design and contemporary engineering. As the investors from Lancaster Racing entered, Asher sensed their immediate fascination with the car. Victor lingered at the far end of the room, his frustration barely hidden. Serafina moved ahead, her voice steady and resolute. "This is our mission," she stated. "We embrace the finest elements of the past and carry them forward into the future. Our work goes beyond merely restoring cars. We transform them." The investors acknowledged this, whispering among one another. One of them glanced at Victor. "Sterling is undoubtedly leading the way in innovation. We're on the verge of finalizing the contract with them." Victor's jaw tightened, yet he managed to maintain a strained smile. Naturally, Asher wore a smirk. Checkmate. As the final investors departed and the rush of excitement began to wane, Asher stood beside Serafina, gazing at the Mustang they had crafted. "That was quite the risk," he whispered. She turned, a slow smile dancing on her lips. "We won, didn't we?" "Yeah," he replied, observing her intently. "We did." A palpable change enveloped them, a charged atmosphere that had been simmering since their first encounter. In a moment of instinct, Asher leaned in, and for the first time, Serafina remained close. As their lips met, she surrendered to the moment, her fingers clutching his shirt as if to tether herself to something tangible. The kiss lingered, profound, brimming with emotions neither dared to articulate. As she withdrew, her breath shaky, her gaze met his, and Asher realized this had transcended mere business. It had evolved into something far more significant. The kiss remained etched in Asher's thoughts, well beyond the fleeting moment. Positioned beside Serafina Lancaster under the warm glow of the showroom lights, it had seemed destined, as if it had been brewing since their first encounter. Yet now, seated in his office at Sterling Automotive, fixated on the empty document on his computer screen, the weight of reality started to settle in. This wasn't merely a fleeting romance. It was a perilous landscape for her, for him, for all they had constructed, and most troubling of all, he felt no remorse. "Asher, do you have a moment?" He glanced up to find Vaughn, the head technician, at the door, wearing his typical inscrutable demeanor. Asher let out a breath, closing his laptop. "What's going on?" Vaughn entered, pulling the door shut behind him. "There's chatter circulating quickly about you and Lancaster." Asher's jaw tightened, and while some view it as romantic, others see it as reckless. Vaughn crossed his arms. "Do you understand the implications of this situation? Just a month ago you were a small-town mechanic. Now here you are entangled with the CEO. Asher's irritation was palpable. "That's not what this is." Vaughn inclined his head. "It doesn't matter what it is." The perception of others weighed heavily. An uncomfortable silence lingered in the air. Finally, Vaughn let out a deep sigh. "Listen, you've worked hard to be where you are. Don't allow anyone to turn this into a disadvantage for you." Asher nodded slowly, a silent acknowledgement. Vaughn observed him for a moment longer, then took a step back. "Excellent. Individuals like Victor Langley are just biding their time for you to make a mistake." Asher was already aware of that. The question lingered. How long until Victor made his next move? That evening, Asher found himself once more in Serafina's penthouse. This time, it was she who paced restlessly. "He's going to strike back," she declared, arms crossed, her voice edged with frustration. Victor was not one to easily accept defeat. Asher propped himself against the counter, observing her closely. It was clear to us that this was far from finished. She let out a sharp breath. "Yes, but now it feels personal. He's no longer just targeting me. He's on his way." A slow smirk curled at the corners of Asher's lips. "Let him come." Serafina cast him a piercing glance. "I'm not joking, Asher. You stand to lose everything in this situation." He moved in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "And so do you. Yet that didn't prevent you from kissing me last night." She tensed, her eyes revealing a fleeting glimpse of something raw, nearly exposed. "Asher, please tell me you regret it," he whispered. Her mouth opened, yet silence lingered. She was unable to. He extended his hand, gently placing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Then I have no intention of leaving. A prolonged hush enveloped them. Finally, she murmured, "That's what terrifies me." In that moment, Asher understood that this was more than merely concerning Victor. Serafina felt a deep fear, not only for her company but for him as well. The assault arrived the following morning. Not via the press, not through hushed whispers, but through Elliot. Asher had just completed his review of the restoration blueprints when his phone buzzed. The instant he recognized the school's number, a chilling dread took root in his stomach. "This is Asher Cole," he replied. "Mr. Cole, this is Principal Dawson," the voice on the other end stated. "We need you to come in. An incident has occurred involving your son." Asher was in the process of grabbing his keys. "Is he injured?" "No, but the situation is complex. It concerns your custody arrangement." A chill coursed through him. Custody? He didn't hesitate for a moment. As Asher entered Elliot's school, his gaze fell upon his son in the main office, appearing lost and diminutive in a chair far too large for him. However, it was the figure beside him that ignited a storm of fury within Asher. Victor Langley, impeccably attired in a pristine three-piece suit. The man pivoted with a self-satisfied grin. "Ah, Mr. Cole, it seems you took your sweet time." Asher advanced, struggling to restrain the urge to throw a punch. "What on earth is happening?" Principal Dawson cleared his throat. "Mr. Langley has submitted an emergency petition challenging your ability as a parent." The words hit Asher with the force of a freight train. "What?" Victor brought his hands together in a feigned display of compassion. "You see, the media has been crafting a rather chaotic narrative about you. A new job, a high-profile romance, and, naturally, your criminal history." Asher's fists tightened. "That was more than 10 years ago. I was just a child." "Those charges were wiped clean," Victor smirked. "It doesn't alter the reality of your violent past, or that your son could thrive in a more stable setting." Asher felt a surge of anger. "You believe you can snatch my child from me?" he growled. Victor leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper meant solely for Asher's ears. "I don't have to take him, Cole. I only need to make you uneasy." How much can a man endure when he's preoccupied with safeguarding the one thing that truly holds significance for him? Asher's hands trembled with rage. This wasn't merely a matter of custody. This wasn't solely about Elliot. This served as a caution, a signal that Victor Langley operated on his own terms, and he had just upped the ante. Asher navigated the road back to Sterling Automotive in Jashida. The quiet enveloped him, his grip on the steering wheel tight, as if it were the sole anchor keeping him grounded. As he parked, Serafina stood outside, her expression taut and filled with anticipation. The instant he emerged, she sensed it. What had transpired? Asher let out a sharp breath. He pursued Elliot. Her expression shifted, a chill creeping into her features. "He did what?" "He submitted a false petition challenging my custody," Asher said, his voice gravelly. "He's making my life so incredibly difficult that I feel like I have no option but to leave." Serafina's hands clenched into fists. "Then we retaliated with even more force." Asher fixed his gaze on her. "Are you certain you want to engage in battle with this man?" Her demeanor was unyielding. "He has already initiated hostilities. I'm simply ensuring his defeat." A slow, perilous smirk played at Asher's lips. "Then let us conclude this." Victor Langley had underestimated the consequences of his actions. He believed he could strip everything away from them without facing repercussions, but he was gravely mistaken. Crossing that line was a fatal error. Targeting Serafina's business was one thing, but involving Elliot in this conflict was a transgression that Asher could not and would not overlook. As he sat in the conference room of Sterling Automotive, gazing at the legal documents that Serafina had laid out before him, the gravity of the situation pressed heavily upon him. "You need to fight this in court," Serafina stated, her tone steady yet resolute. "We can contest his petition and demonstrate that it lacks any real basis." Asher let out a breath, raking his fingers through his hair. "Sure, but you understand just as clearly as I do that this isn't merely a matter of legality. It's fundamentally about power. At this moment, he possesses more than I do. Serafina's gaze sparkled with a chilling intensity. Then we will seize it from him. They spent hours devising their plan. Serafina summoned her legal team. Asher contacted a former acquaintance well-versed in custody law. Together, they strategized every conceivable approach. Every move Victor could contemplate next. Yet, as the night drew to a close, it was Serafina who provided Asher with the true weapon he sought. She slid a USB drive across the table. He picked it up, a frown creasing his brow. "What's this?" She leaned back, arms crossed defiantly. Victor's Achilles heel. Asher narrowed his eyes, contemplating. "How on earth did you manage to obtain this?" Her lips curled ever so slightly. "You're not the only one who can get their hands dirty, Cole." Asher stared in disbelief. She chuckled at him. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." She smirked. "Smart man." The following morning, Asher took the initiative, not waiting for Victor to act. He strode directly to Langley Enterprises, bypassing security and entering Victor's glass-walled office with purpose. Victor hardly acknowledged him, his focus fixed on the tasks at hand. "Ah, Mr. Cole, it would be wise to arrange an appointment if that's your desire." Asher casually flung the USB onto the desk. Victor lifted an eyebrow in response. "What's this? A farewell offering?" Asher leaned closer. "It's evidence that you've been channeling funds through fake companies to distort your company's stock value." For the first time, Victor's confident mask shattered. "You're bluffing," he said, though a flicker of uncertainty danced in his eyes. Asher crossed his arms. "Am I? Because this little drive holds bank records, offshore accounts, and enough evidence to pique the SEC's interest in your business practices." Victor's jaw tightened. Asher pressed on, his tone steady yet dangerous, stating, "Here's what will unfold. You will withdraw the custody petition. You will stay away from Serafina's affairs. And you will not approach me or my child ever again." Victor let out a brief laugh, though it was devoid of its typical assurance. "And if I don't?" Asher smirked. "Then by this time tomorrow, every major news outlet in the country will have a copy of what's on that drive. The SEC will be knocking on your door, and your empire will be gone." Silence stretched between them. Victor leaned back in his chair, his gaze sharp and assessing. "You truly believe you've triumphed," he said softly. Asher's face grew tense. Victor took a deep breath, then reached for the phone. "Cancel the petition," he instructed his lawyer. Asher didn't linger for further words. He pivoted and exited, fully aware that this conflict had reached its conclusion. That evening, Asher stood once more outside Serafina's penthouse. This time, as she opened the door, the air was devoid of tension. No strategies to discuss, just her presence. She moved aside, allowing him entry, and as the door closed behind them, she exhaled softly. "So it's finished," Asher acknowledged. "It's finished." She observed him intently, as if probing for any trace of uncertainty. "And Elliot?" Asher felt a warmth spread through his chest at the thought of his son. "Safe, I won't have to battle for him once more." A change flickered in her eyes, and Asher understood. This was more than mere relief. It was something profound, something enduring. Without uttering another word, he bridged the gap between them, cradling her face in his hands, and when he kissed her this time, there was a complete absence of hesitation. No doubt, only the anticipation of all that was to come. They had struggled, their conflicts, and now, at last, they could truly begin to embrace life. The preceding weeks had been a tempest, a flurry of conflicts faced and triumphed over. Victor Langley had vanished from their existence. The menacing threats, the insidious sabotage, the games, everything had reached its conclusion. Now here I am, standing in the garage at Sterling Automotive. Asher. Cole finally allowed himself to exhale. The aroma of newly polished chrome filled the air. Engine oil and the scent of aged leather enveloped the space as he meticulously wiped down the hood of the 1967 Mustang Fastback, the car that had ignited his passion. It stood fully restored, shining brilliantly beneath the shop lights. A true masterpiece of both the past and the present, much like the life he had crafted. created right here. Just like him and Serafina, a gentle voice broke through his reverie. You keep gazing at that car as if it contains all the secrets of existence. He turned to find Serafina Lancaster leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, a teasing smile dancing on her lips. Asher let out a soft laugh. Perhaps it does. She approached him, the sound of her heels gently tapping against the floor. Or perhaps you've simply grown accustomed to the presence of beauty in your life. His smirk broadened. Oh, I certainly have. Her eyes glimmered with delight at the playful tone in his voice. Yet, there was an underlying warmth, a genuine essence that lingered beneath the surface. They had endured unimaginable trials side by side, and yet here they stood, not merely existing, but triumphing. For the first time in ages, Asher found himself not just struggling to keep his head above water. He was creating something enduring. Later that evening, Asher arrived at Elliot's school, observing his 9-year-old son dash toward the truck with his typical enthusiasm. The boy hopped in, flinging his backpack into the back seat. Guess what? We had career day today. Asher arched an eyebrow. Oh, really? What did you say your dad does? Elliot smirked. I told them my dad creates the most amazing cars in the world, and that he's somewhat of a legend. Asher let out a soft laugh. Well, Elliot had a playful smirk on his face. Serafina is the true leader, so, Asher chuckled, tousling his son's hair. Clever boy. Then, with a more serious tone, he continued, kiddo, things are about to change from here on out. No more shifting from place to place. No more fretting over the future. We finally found our place. Elliot's smile faded into a more subdued, contemplative expression. I appreciate that. Asher felt a swell of emotion in his chest. Likewise, young one. That evening, Serafina beckoned Asher to her cherished place, a hidden vantage point just beyond the city's edge. The sky unfolded infinitely above them, a vast expanse of stars shimmering against the shadowy horizon. The cool night breeze whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Serafina stood at the edge, her gaze contemplative. Do you ever ponder what lies ahead? Asher joined her, his presence steady. For us? She turned, locking her gaze with his. Yeah. Asher breathed out, grasping her hand in his. I once dreaded that question. I believed the future was a battle I had to wage. Each day felt like a struggle for mere survival. He held her fingers tightly. For the first time ever, I feel no fear about what lies ahead. It's because I know it will be with you. A slow, breathtaking smile spread across her lips. You sure about that? Asher chuckled. Sarah, I've never been more sure of anything. She leaned into him then, pressing her forehead against his. Good, because I'm not leaving either. Under that vast expanse of sky, they stood side by side. Two souls who had faced their struggles, emerged victorious, and discovered something truly precious, something genuine, something eternal. A month later, Asher and Serafina found themselves outside Sterling Automotive, fingers intertwined. Before them stood the Mustang. Vastback purred softly, its restored engine humming like a heartbeat. Elliot peeked out from the passenger seat. Are we going, or what? Serafina laughed. Feeling a bit restless, he flashed a grin. Of course, this is my first genuine road trip. Asher smirked, tossing the keys to Serafina. You driving, or am I? She twirled the keys between her fingers, stepping closer. How about we take turns? He arched a brow. Exchanging power. That doesn't quite fit your character, Lancaster. She smirked. It seems your influence is starting to show. Cole. Asher laughed softly, shaking his head. He took one final look at the life they had created. The garage. The city. The enterprise that transformed it all. He eased into the driver's seat, the familiar contours welcoming him back. Serafina nestled beside him, while Elliot radiated enthusiasm from the back. Asher's hands tightened around the wheel, awakening a long-buried sensation he hadn't experienced in years. Liberty. He roared the engine, sensing the unbridled strength beneath him. Then, with the woman he cherished beside him and his son giggling in the back seat, he slammed down on the accelerator. They soared into the uncharted, embarking on a fresh journey. A new chapter unfolds, a road unfurling before them, brimming with potential. For the first time in his life, Asher Cole found himself not fleeing from something. He was racing toward it. What an incredible journey! The tale of Asher and Serafina was brimming with unexpected turns, deep passion, and a love that truly demonstrates the reality of second chances. Now I'm eager to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you tuning in from? Are you on the side of love conquers all? Or do you lean towards power plays and redemption? What was your favorite moment in this narrative? If the story resonated with you, make sure to subscribe and enable notifications so you won't miss out on any more captivating tales like this one. If this tale captivated you from start to finish, please express your appreciation by giving this video a hearty thumbs up. Thank you for tuning in. Your support truly matters. I eagerly anticipate sharing even more incredible tales with you soon. Until next time,